You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick, both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, JJ Johnson, is an amazing drummer who has played with some of the most incredible guitar players in the world, including Lenny Kravitz, John Mayer, Susan Tedeschi Trucks, Derek Trucks, and now Gary Clark Jr. Today, I'm going to talk to JJ about getting his start in drumming, playing with these incredible musicians, and getting back out on the road after being home for so long during the pandemic. So come along with me as I catch up with JJ Johnson. JJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Sarah.
It's so nice to see you too. It has been a very long time.
It has. Wow. Yeah, that's saying the least.
And we are not too far from each other right now. You're in Maine, of course. There's a couple of states away from me.
Yeah.
And I'm waving to you from a couple of states away, but we're both in New England. So that's, it's as close as we've been in a long time.
Right. Well, I'll take it for the time being.
Right, exactly. Same here. So tell me how you've been. I know it's been such a time, of course, through the quarantine and everything. How have you been through everything?
I've been pretty good considering, a lot of, struggles. I'm not unique to everyone else that's had to deal with so many different things and some losses and just the challenges of, it's unprecedented and something obviously I don't think any of us foresaw happening, and particularly in the industry that we work in, and how that kind of, we're affected by things like this, the first to go and the last to be thought of. And,
right.
I get it because it's, classic fashion with the arts. That's a very common story, but considering all those things, are pretty good, and there were some silver linings in the trenches through all of this. I think it allowed for a lot of reflection and then just basic time too, I think, which a lot of us really needed, and for things to slow down, to be able to kind of reassess things. So after a while, I kind of started to get in that headspace and think of it in regards to dealing with the challenges and that light. And there were some really great things that have developed out of that. And the time. Yeah.
I think for our industry, it was one of those things where a lot of us were at first kind of like in denial that this was happening for a moment. Like, is it really this, this can't really be happening, and it can't really last as long as it's lasting and all of that. And then I think you're right. Like, once that reality took over, like, okay, this is the new situation that we're in and it's not going away. And how do I figure things out?
Yeah.
And then, and then that, like, learning to live with it, learning to figure out like how to come through it and finding the silver linings. I think that's been like a theme among everyone. What for you, what were the things that came out of it that were the positives?
Well, initially, of course, it's, I'm still raising a young boy, and he's 13, and that's, everything that comes with that period.
Yes.
And then, it's typical. I'm always really busy and traveling quite a bit. And so it really allowed for me. I haven't been, which a lot of us said, I haven't been home for at that pace for many years. And so it was a great opportunity to be, day to day, spending time with him and locking in and, So that was great, and that's been great. And in terms of our development and our relationship, and continuing. And then beyond that, I think right before things kind of happened, I had made a significant change in my course and had decided to leave the Tedeschi Trucks band after 10 years. I just felt it was time for a change for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all amicable. Obviously there was obviously some disappointments, but we're all family and friends, so that was that's the way that will be.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly, Junior had reached out to me, and I think it was a timing thing. I think he was also ready for some changes and things,
Mm-hmm.
and so it kind of it teamed up at the right time, in terms of me moving forward and wanting to be a part of something else, and that felt like a good place for me. And so we'd started, plans were starting to develop, and obviously what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I think because of there was some changes within his unit, and so we needed to find some other people as we sort of rebuilding his thing, and I think had things been different, like if we were on schedule, the way things were originally sort of planned, it would have been of a rush to
Mm-hmm.
try to to put things together and really make sure we were finding the right people and the right fit. And this time allowed for that. And not only that, it's allowed for us to really discover stuff, like a sound, and
Mm.
it's really become a true collective, and everybody's excuse me, bringing we're writing as a band, and so we for months and months and months of just with no rules, no preconceived agenda about what we're trying to do, just kind of listening to each other and throwing stuff up against the wall. And we have hours and hours of material like that, and sort of some seeds and others with other
Mm-hmm.
people would come in and have ideas, and we would start with that. I mean, it's like it's been a great opportunity for me to explore some of my vision and
Mm-hmm.
how I hear and see music, and but it's truly operated as a collective. So this time has really allowed for that to develop, and then where we are now. So this is our second run that we've been on since we decided where things opened up a little bit more, and we had
Yeah.
the opportunity to go out and do some touring. So we did a run back in let's see, September into October, maybe
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Yeah, and then this is I think we're almost 2 weeks into this run, and
That's so great.
it's been um, um, and also we're trying to finish up a record. So with all that, there's been a lot of work and development through this time period, and so we're kind of not really trying to rush stuff, but take our time and do
Mm-hmm.
make sure we're putting out something that we feel 100% about. But it's really different. It's exciting because I think it's a kind of definitely a new territory that we haven't heard from him yet, and it's
Wow.
it sounds like what the five of us sound like.
That's amazing. I'm
Yeah,
excited to hear that. That's
yeah,
yeah, I can't I'm kind of like hearing it in my head. Think no, knowing what
yeah.
you sound like, knowing what he sounds like. Um, but that's really exciting, and it's incredible that you had that time to take your time and to
Mhm.
like figure out how you play together, what your sound is, develop that, because that is something that it doesn't happen often. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a pretty great thing. And you were telling me that you close to each other, close enough to where like you could
Yeah,
still play together through this whole time period, which is amazing.
it is, and I've never. It's been a while since I've been in situations, but professionally working that Because these days, so many people, whether it's a band or you work as a sideman, most people live in different parts of the country or the world people in typical fashions, because of the transportation that we have available. It's fine. It's not typically not an issue, but this is different. It was also something that he was kind of insistent on. He wanted somebody that was local. And so, we had to go figure out. So there were a number of people who came through and just really tried to find the right fit, and I'm grateful for what we came up with and how that feels. And it makes the difference in something really being, rather than somebody who's really integrated and there for the cause, and rather than someone who's just showing up to do a job.
Right.
And that's fine too, but that's not what he wanted to cultivate.
Sure.
I love that. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. And again, I'm so excited to hear the new project. I think.
Me too. I'm excited for people to hear it. And,
I'm sure it's going to be great. Exciting.
I hope that people love it, but we're almost there. We're getting there.
Yeah. And how have the shows been since you got back on stage? You're starting a new thing, like playing live with a new, group. How has it been after the quarantine?
I think it was pretty, as you would predict, as well as us being excited about going out and playing music, like on a stage, and with really nice production and the energy of people. And I think obviously people were so happy to be out and seeing live music, and once again, just reiterating the fact of the how important it is to people and what it does, whether you're creating that or somebody is taking it in and being entertained, or it's really a beautiful thing. So we're seeing all of that, and the level of excitement is it's amazing.
That's so great.
All the shows have been really good, and then the band is just getting better night to night as we're getting to know each other, from that perspective, because we coming out of being a studio band and trying to project these things live, and then opening up and communicating, just playing with a little bit more improvisation, just that those extra fun things other than just playing in and around what's arranged and communicating with the other, and just those things that happen night to night where things pop up and it's like, wow,
the discoveries, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The unpredictability and discoveries of playing live. I think it's like another element of excitement, I think.
It is. It's one of the things that I miss sometimes, as much as and this is another thing, that having conversations with fellow musicians through the time period, I think some people, some of the self-searching that some people landed on were like, I guess some guys were like, I don't think I ever want to go back on the road again after being home for a certain period of time, in which I understand that.
Sure.
I get it. And because the studio is an environment that I really love as well. That's very different than playing shows live. I think they're two different kind of things, although they're, very artistic spaces. But I'm just constantly reminded of the moment getting out there, playing in front of people. It's like, I do miss this, and I couldn't just put it away. And also just being thankful to, and grateful to be able to do that. But I do understand the idea of sometimes being in the studio and creating, and just that process is fun, and it's fascinating and rewarding.
Right.
But I prefer to have a kind of balance of the both.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I think it's changed a lot of people's perspectives, because life on the road isn't easy. And so, and like you said,
it still isn't.
Right. It's not. It's made a little bit harder, I think, because of the new normal with the regulations and all the stuff, and and then also things getting postponed and canceled, and we hear about that all the time. So it does add another layer of uncertainty and maybe stress to the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, live music is so incredibly important, and I can't wait to get back out. I haven't actually been to a show yet. And I know. Well, the few shows that I was supposed to go to were actually postponed or canceled. So, but Nate Smith is coming next. Couple days. He's coming in a couple days.
With his group,
with Kinfolk, yes.
I just saw him a few weeks ago. He came through Austin with Brittany Howard.
Yes. So great, right?
Definitely. I mean, he's so inspiring, and that whole band is amazing. But he's just like, he's definitely one of my favorite people, and I'm glad to see that he's getting the attention that he's getting, because it's well deserved, and just because he comes from a very special. He's got his own thing.
He does.
And, I love watching and listening to him play. So that's that's beautiful.
Yeah. So hoping to get out and see him in a couple days. That might be my first show back. I might cry. I feel like,
that's all right. It's all it's joy, and because that's a beautiful thing about music. It's just like it's very emotional.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
I was touched by something. Just reading. Off topic a little bit, but there was something I read. I had got up early this morning and just doing some research, and there was something that Dave Grohl. I wish I could remember the quote, but it just hit me in a way that made me well up.
Yes,
really a beautiful phrase, and talking just about music. How music is in the air. I can't remember the quote. Some interview that he did, but it's.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I can't quite think of it either, but I love, Dave, he has that book out. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list. I need to read the book. But his view on music and how he talks about it is so relatable.
Yep.
You hear him talk and you read, and it's just like, yeah, that's me too, so I can't wait to read that book. I have a trip coming up, and I think I'm going to grab that so that I can read it on the flight.
I need to read the books that I've been buying for the last 2 years. I've got this ridiculous stack, and while I'm traveling too, and I'm not reading any of them right now.
Yes.
So I don't like traveling with I love hardbacks, but they're a pain in the ass to travel with.
Yeah.
And then but I'm home. I'm looking. It's literally I have a stack of books that I've just been sort of collecting them. So my kind of work is cut out for me whenever I stop and apply myself.
I'm in the same boat. I totally sympathize with that. And they just add up, because you think like, oh, I really want to read that. But then there's always something else happening, I feel like. And even through this this period of being home, there's been a lot to do. There's been a lot going on. But I did make it through quite a few books and got the stack down slightly. But and then I have great friends who like lend books, and they say, hey, thought of you, and I think you'd love this book, and I can't wait to read it. And then it just they just stack up. But
I love that. That's kind of my favorite. It's kind of, similar to records and music sharing. That way I kind of prefer that, because the other thing is like, after you've read books, even just once or, maybe a couple times, several times, it's like, pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to do. And often I've been on the receiving end of receiving some amazing things from friends. And although I need to check, I was like, do you want that book back? Kind of thing,
Yes.
But it's, like certain things, it's like things come around.
I agree.
Best to share them.
Absolutely. And actually, a few weeks back, I got a book in the mail. I have no idea who sent it to me. I have to remember to post about this and ask, because it was the Charlie Watts Sympathy for the Drummer book, Why Charlie Watts Matters. And it was brilliant. It was such a great book. And I read it. I finished it like 2 days before he passed away. And it just had, I felt like even closer, you know, to
Yeah.
him and his story. And it was just such a beautiful book. But I don't even know. Someone sent it to me, and I've asked everyone I can think of if it was them, and it was not. So I don't know.
I mean,
I
that's
don't know.
very sweet and beautiful. You know,
Yes.
I love them in those nice surprises. You know, without them, just like,
Yeah.
hey, I love when people just show up in that way.
So nice. Yeah. And so meaningful and timely. It was just,
Mhm.
yeah, that was wonderful. So I do want to go back in time a little bit. And you mentioned Austin a few times, and you
Yeah.
actually grew up in Austin, Texas, right?
Well, part of my life, I grew up.
Mhm.
I was born in San Antonio, and that came up. That's a big part of my upbringing as well.
Mhm.
I moved to Austin later, but at this point in my life, I've spent more of my life in Austin
Mhm.
than San Antonio. But yeah, I was born there and went to school. You know, typical like. Well, you know, I'm trying to think of what year. My father was in the military, so we lived in Germany for a short period of time in my younger years.
Oh, wow.
For at least, I don't forget, maybe at least 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
And then um, right before I started school, we moved back, I believe. And yeah, but grew up there. Music was a big thing with my parents. I think my dad may have. I think he owned a trumpet. I think he played trumpet when he was in high school,
Okay.
and the marching band.
Mhm.
But you know, that was the extent of it. But he was just a nut for music. You know, it was always around, um, and just watching them like you know, whether it was singing along to records at home or playing them or in the car, it was nonstop. It was, you know, or just having get-togethers over the house with friends, and everybody's dancing, and or you know, me and my dad playing like, you know, somebody's got a broom and
Yeah.
there's a mic stand. My dad was a very big James Brown fan, so that was some of the earliest things and influence me that I heard. And definitely, I know that was a big part of my influence by the time I got around to playing the drum set. It was kind of trying to play
Mhm.
one of, you know, that sort of. Not, it didn't sound anything like that, but
Yeah, but that makes
well, you
sense
know,
though.
that was the first thing I sat down and played on the drum set when I had put hands on it, and
Mhm.
but yeah, a lot of everything. Actually, my dad had a really. I mean, they were primarily like blues and soul music. You know, my parents are from Louisiana, and actually, my parents went to kindergarten together.
Oh my
Funny enough,
gosh.
yeah. Um,
I love that. My parents went to kindergarten together too. And
See,
it's so sweet.
it is. Um, and yeah, and so there's so many enriching things, you know, that they just had, you
Mhm.
know, whether they were intentional or not, but just that environment of,
Mhm.
you know, my dad's one of his adages was like, you do what you have to do what you want to do, which applies to so many different things. And
That's so good.
it's always in my head, you know, basically, you can have fun, but you have to take care of what you need to take care of.
Absolutely.
But definitely have fun.
Yes.
You
Work
know,
hard, play hard, right?
exactly.
Yes.
So that's definitely been absorbed. But yeah, so I was probably really, you know, having all that growing up, and then I got, you know, was hit by the bug of rock and roll, whether it's other friends in the neighborhood or, you know, a music programs on television late night, whatever.
Mhm.
So then I was like, oh, I really was drawn to the guitar actually initially, um, as early as like maybe 8, I think.
Wow.
Um, and I just never quite happened. Or my parents, for whatever reason, didn't. I was one of those Christmas list things, you know,
Yes.
like, well, here's my opportunity to cash in. And so I'm, you know, back in the day when I was growing up, they had catalogs, you know, so
Yes.
then you go, it's like, I know
The
what I
circle
want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
circle the things in the catalog. The Sears catalog, I remember
Yep.
coming. Yeah, that's what it was. And
Specifically.
yes.
And that's just, so, you're kind of hoping that morning. I mean, of course, there were some of the other things that you wanted as well.
Mhm.
And you go down there and it's like, you start, you go through your open your presents. And I sound so ungrateful saying this, but, Western culture.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was
Um,
a thing. Like
yeah.
I remember the drums in the Sears catalog. There were like a
Yep.
few options and there were guitars.
Yeah.
But I would always also circle the drums in the Sears catalog. So, I know. It's a
They
thing.
never showed up.
No.
But by the, and then as I was getting older and meeting like-minded, making like-minded friends, and out of just interest, whether it was like motocross and BMX and rock music,
Mhm.
and then forming bands. The first band was at 12 with my buddies, and they had already gotten guitars. They were taking lessons and
Mhm.
those things, and I was just kind of hanging out. We listened to records and sitting there in bedrooms watching them try to play the songs that we were listening to records. And
Mhm.
so over a course of time, I just started trying to find a way to participate in that, and just kind of playing on stuff, which seemed to kind of come natural. And then gravitated toward playing the drums because it just spoke to me in a way. It was like, I really felt like I had a handle on it. It was very natural,
Yeah.
with the type of coordination and hearing a beat and being able to play that.
Mhm.
And so I was, it was like that bolt of lightning thing. Like the feeling, it was like I was addicted, And so after
Yes.
that, it was just, and it was also another way I could participate playing music with, my peers.
Mhm.
And it just took, I mean, I was just, everything else just went to the side, because I grew up playing a little bit of sports as well. But that drive and that bug of playing music and specifically playing drums was just, my brain was preoccupied with that. So it still is,
Mhm.
But then I started when I got to junior high school, because we didn't have any formal bands in elementary other than like we had a music class where you played a recorder, and that was about the extent of it.
Right.
Public school. And then by the time I got to junior high school, I joined the concert band, and that's when a lot of stuff like early formal studies kind of came into play for me, like learning how to read and hold drumsticks, and also you had to play snare drum or some bass drum,
Mhm.
timpani,
Mhm.
mallets, all of that stuff, which is great. At the time, I was probably like, everybody just wants to play the drum set. I don't want to do all this stuff, but
Right.
So
The foundation, right? It's tough.
yeah,
It's tough when
it is.
the drum set is such a cool instrument and you want to play those songs that you love so much, and the
Yep,
foundation. It's not an easy, I don't think it's an easy instrument. It takes a lot of time and effort
it does.
to lay that foundation to get to that point where you're jamming with your friends, right?
And yeah, indeed. And so with that, quickly, I was the first. Again, I forget whenever. Maybe it was in the fall. It was for like once a school year starts, and then so you're preparing so then there's contests, and
Mhm.
I think it's within the first 12 weeks. I want to say I forget, but it seems like it was kind of in that like around fall season.
Mhm.
So we go to contests. We have a solo piece to play in front of judges. It was
Mhm.
like a Saturday, and
Yes.
I did really good. And
Mhm.
I got a 1 in my solo.
That's great.
I think I have that piece somewhere. I can't remember the name of it, but just I remember walking out of there feeling great. My dad took me there, so he was waiting in the hallways while I did it. Of course, that was nerve-wracking too. Like
Yes.
anything that you're going to be, it was maybe 1 or 2 people, and you set up your your snare drum,
Mhm.
and then you play. I think I had
Yes.
to. I did that, and then I did a sight reading piece, and you're waiting around for your score.
For your results, yes.
And
I know.
was,
I'm actually feeling nervous while we're discussing this right now. Because you're right. It was always like a Saturday morning and you'd come in with your snare drum, and they would also judge you on like tuning and sticking and dynamics and rudiments, right? You had to play a few rudiments or something. I'm thinking back and going like, oh my gosh, I just remember that feeling of being like a, 13-year-old kid and just being like, oh, I'm so nervous. But but that was great. That was great. It sets you up for like being in that kind of situation in the future where you're auditioning for something.
Absolutely. And that took a while too to get around to to feel comfortable with. But so as a result of that, I got my results, and it was like on our way home, my dad made a pit stop at the drum store. He pulls up, and so that which goes back to what I'm saying about his how he thought it. He never told me this was going to be the case, but I think at that point he knew I was really into it and really dedicated, and so let's get the kid a drum set. He really seems to be serious, and he's going to apply himself. And he did. It was changed my life,
Oh, and I love that.
Yeah, and to have that support too. Most people think when I get into my early history of like music, and when I asked for a guitar, and then it's like, when they bought you drums, it's like, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And they were also, man, I just think back on how fortunate I was and how patient my parents were, because as a result of that, I was in many bands through junior high school, but more so high school, because then I started to get really interested in a lot of different styles. And so you kind of have to find, because there weren't very many people that were into a wide variety of styles, at least, some of the groups, guys, most of them that wanted to play rock music, or that's, like heavy rock, or heavy metal, or whatever. And I was into all kinds of things. So,
sure.
So with that came, with the bands that I was in, usually came with the rehearsing, and which usually ended up being at my folks' house.
Of course, where the drums are, that's where
well, especially when you couldn't drive,
Yes.
So they would always, your parents come home from work too, just before they even get home, to like a blaring garage it's like, I can't only imagine. It's like after a long day of work, it's like,
I know.
You gotta hear this. You know what I mean?
Now as a parent and as an adult, what that takes.
Yes.
What that, how much effort that takes to do that, work all day and come home, and really what you want is like some peace, right? But but to be so supportive, it's amazing.
It's nothing. Yeah, I don't take it for granted, especially even more so now. I'm kind of just like, wow, I'm really fortunate, because I know many people, or young kids, were discouraged or shut down because, and it's understandable. So it's, I have to give some extra love to my parents for tolerating that, and then now beyond the band practice, it was just my individual practice time, like just like having to listen to somebody practice, especially it's just like, stop, but let me do it, as long as I took care of what I needed to take care of. And then it kind of grew from there, and it just, more bands, and then I started studying formally with a drum teacher in San Antonio named Jeff Ryder, and he was really instrumental in me thinking about being a professional, because he was always aware and he was supportive of me in the bands that I was playing with. We were all just young, kids, teenagers. But he put in some extra time and gave me a lot of wisdom in terms of like seeing it beyond the band, you know what I mean? Or like, we're going to make it to the top. It's like, you can do this as a professional career. It might not be that,
Mm-hmm.
and opened my mind to a lot more. And also some of the things that he would, introduce to me that I probably would not have sought out on my own. And some things
Right.
that were indigenous to the culture of where I was, and some of the types of gigs, like, conjunto stuff or cumbias. And I wouldn't have at that time, that age, like, I'm not going to go out and seek how to play a cumbia properly. But he arms me with these things, like, stuff that you should know.
Absolutely.
And challenged me in a way without me realizing. I was just always, he expected a lot, and he was not playing around. And I didn't want to waste his time. But also, that thing of, like, you want the approval of somebody. And he was really instrumental in a lot of things for me, and being here today.
That's so incredible. I love that. I think, like, the educators in our life are so important. You never will forget what he did for you, the influence that he had on you. And I wonder if our teachers get enough credit sometimes. So full credit to him.
That's right. And they don't sometimes, and I need to check back in with him. Actually, the last time I saw him was at my we're keeping consistent, but it's relevant. And but my father passed away last September, and he was that was the last time I saw him. He attended and came by, but also time has gone by now. I was like, I need me to also make a point of just checking in, with people too. It's another thing to keep in mind, like, because everybody gets busy, but it's things like that. And before, make sure that you give them the time and the reverence that they're due.
I agree.
Just keeping in touch with people too,
Yes. Yeah, I know. And that's something I think that the past year and a half has given us all a new perspective on. As well, with the the importance of that connection, and the importance of keeping up communication.
Yes.
And then, it's been a year and a half of a lot of loss, and I was so sorry to hear about your dad. And
thank you.
Absolutely. And I think after this conversation, I'll reach out to my teachers as well, because it's a good reminder to do that.
Yeah, I know. And whatever it is that, sometimes these things trigger, or us just being on topic, and just like, because I have been thinking about that for the last couple of months. It's like, I need to check in with Jeff, and but then something, you're in the middle of doing a number of other things, and it just kind of slips out. But it's like, so
just like with the books, right?
Yes.
There's always something going on, but yes, we're going to do this. We'll remind each other for sure. And, I want to touch upon the thing that you said about wanting to play guitar early on. And that was what, you were drawn to guitar.
Yeah.
I think that's so significant, because you're like known for playing with the most killer guitar players.
Yeah.
Right?
I kind of look back at him. It's like, wow, I know a thing or two about great guitar playing.
Yes. Seriously.
Most of my career has been with guitar, and it's great. I love it. I feel very fortunate to and all the list of people and artists that and it keeps. Here I am.
Growing, right? I know. I'm thinking about Lenny Kravitz and Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi Trucks. I mean,
John and Charlie Sutz.
Yeah, John Mayer.
And
oh my gosh.
And then guys, even in like Ian Moore, Chris Duarte, Billy White. Really, it's like,
it's amazing.
A lot.
Yeah. It is a lot. I mean, it's incredible. So yeah, amazing that, like, guitar was that kind of first, like, attractive instrument to you, and where you've come over the years, and those amazing artists that you've played with. And I think about, like, Lenny Kravitz in particular, being a drummer.
Yeah.
Lenny plays drums, and he's played drums on his albums and everything. And I saw a sound check with him years and years and years ago. And I remember, I will never forget this, this sound check, because he was so incredibly specific about, and I thought about when I was thinking about you and these amazing musicians you play with, I was like, I wonder if JJ had that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it before. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
No, it was great.
Yes.
It was a great opportunity. And unfortunately, things didn't pan out further. It was just sort of like, I don't think it was really for me. So it didn't go the distance. But it was great. And getting some insight, it just didn't pan out. But yeah, he's definitely like very specific about.
Yes.
And I understandably,
Yes. It was incredible to watch the creative process, because you get to see behind the scenes how this all works. But, for me to sit and watch sound check and watch Lenny go to extreme lengths to get the sound perfect. Yes. And he went to every area in that arena and checked to make sure how it sounded. And I was just like blown away, incredibly impressed by that. To have that level of artistry, that he's concerned about how everything's sounding to the people in the different areas of the seat, seats. And it was just super cool.
Yeah, I have a huge appreciation for that. It's because that's what it's about, and I love seeing people with that level of work ethic, and also the care, not only for their art, but for the experience. I mean, who doesn't want to, I appreciate that, going to see when, you go and see a show and it's like the sounds, and it's not, and it's, I hate to say it, but more often than not, it doesn't sound amazing or mind blowing, but when it does, it adds just an extra level to the experience. So, and it depends on the, cause some things are out of, like depending upon sort of the venues or structures, like sports arenas and hockey rinks, they're not made for music. People do a good job with the space, but those things aren't designed to sound good.
Absolutely.
So any extra length that people can go to get it, and I think sometimes it's just you can do the best you can, but just by nature by design and the acoustics, sometimes it's like it is what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you go to a theater that's just made for audio, and it's an incredible, I love to see shows in, that smaller kind of like theater environment. I love
Me too. I really enjoy that. Actually, that's most of what we've been doing on this run. And it's like, the everything about it, the feel. And I'm also a person that I prefer indoors anyways, and particularly theaters. There's more for many reasons, sonically, and theaters vary too, but they sound much better than sports centers. And outdoors, it's kind of like, well, for many reasons, it's like you don't have to deal with elements. The elements, that's a factor that's off the table. You're inside, climate controlled, those kind of things. But yeah, I'm not surprised. It's like just another appreciation for people who are going above and beyond to just present things at the highest quality.
Yeah, for sure. And, absolutely. And then, the other players that you've played with are just so incredibly fantastic. And now to be with Gary Clark Jr., I feel like when you told me that, I was just like, it's perfect. That's just perfect.
Yeah.
I can't think of a more perfect situation. And just because knowing your style and your feel and all of that, and his style too. And I did.
He's another one too, kind of similar to Lenny. Like he's a multi-instrumentalist, so he plays a lot of. Actually, I have some clip of him. I'm not surprised, but he was sitting on my drums, I think at the end of the last run, just during a sound check, and I was, there's everybody plays a number of the people played. We all played. I'm a terrible guitar player, but I keep trying. But he was playing. He's left-handed player, but I was in. But I heard he was just playing like with the organ player John, and he was playing some swing. And you know how that is, like especially I mean, it's just talking about drummers alone playing swing, but somebody who's not known. But it was like, man, he sounded. I have a little video I was catching. I was like, man, he sounds great.
Oh, that's amazing.
But he was playing like over here as I set up. But still, I was like, man, he has that natural feel, too, but it's sat right, how it's supposed to.
That's so cool. I can picture that. That's super cool. I did. I think he opened. This was years and years and years ago. He was opening for a band that I was going and I was interviewing. So I had the schedule that I had to follow, and I cannot remember. It might have been Hosier, possibly.
Okay.
But I was there. I was filming, and he got up on stage, and it was just him because the something had happened, and the band got stuck somewhere, and he was coming from like a different city, and he was there by himself, and he said, "Oh, I'll just play solo. I'll just play my guitar and sing." And this was years and years back. So I had heard his name. I had never seen him play. And I was backstage like doing this interview, and I heard him, and I was like, what is going on out there? I have to go out. And then that's when the guys told me that, the band had gotten stuck, and he was just playing solo. And it was unbelievable. The whole set was unbelievable. And so
I really enjoyed. Yeah, I enjoy listening to him sometimes, just playing by himself, and accompanying himself because he's an amazing guitar player and his voice is amazing. And it's just, it's satisfying. It's it's moving.
Absolutely. Yeah. You talk about like music that evokes emotion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's amazing.
Yeah, he doesn't really need a band. You know what I mean? And I'm still just as engaged. Is what I mean. It's like
for sure. But I can't wait to hear you all together.
Yeah.
Psyched about it.
It's been a lot of fun. So I can only see things growing from here. It's just like in the dialogue that we have too. It's all this feels really nice. I think we're all really enjoying where we are and looking towards the future. And having the opportunity to be able to do that since we're all in the same town.
Right.
That makes a difference. So
right.
Cultivating something local, it feels like a good time, and it's selfishly for me, but also for where we're at, and I think collectively where everyone wants to try to achieve here. It's something that I've never really had.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I did want to touch on being in Austin too. It's live. Is it live musical capital, live music capital, right? I think that's what it's.
I mean, that's somebody
says that.
Somebody ran with that phrase. It's kind of, it's a little, it's like,
But it's a great
town.
It's a great music town.
And it's one of the few because of the community,
Yes,
the way that the music community there supports everyone.
And all styles, right? I think I've been to South by Southwest so many times, and also been there for PASIC. I think there was a PASIC there that I was at.
Oh yeah. I wasn't there. I think I was out of town when that came to Austin. I've been to a couple in San Antonio. A long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. But anytime I'm in Austin, it's just, there's so many, not only opportunities to hear music, but like different styles of music.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love it.
Me too. And it's great. It's another thing with an opportunity coming up and being able to get the experience to do those things, and having a variety of things to learn. And as a young player or whatever, just, that's available. And those things are a part of, really essential, I think, in development. And one of the things that I feel fortunate to have grown up in a place where there were a lot of those things available for you to learn, and then and hone things together and really get the nuance and the fundamentals and the essence of those different styles. So playing country music, blues, obviously, jazz. I mean, salsa,
Yeah.
On and on, and just another just random like art avant-garde projects as well. Yeah, so I feel fortunate to be able to dabble in all those fields within that
Absolutely.
town, and then the variety of musicians around too. So yeah,
Absolutely.
and still growing.
Yeah, and you all have you have dates on the calendar. I saw a bunch of dates. I'll put a link in the description
Yeah.
about, to the website so that people can check out where you guys will be coming
Awesome.
up. And I can't wait to check out the album too. That's super exciting.
Yeah, it is.
And one of the things I have to mention this. Usually when I get ready for a podcast, I'll put, everyone's social media handles and all of that in the description. And one of the things about you is that you are
I
offline.
don't participate in those forums.
You do not participate. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because I admire that incredibly. And like we were talking about earlier, out of necessity, I am on these things and keeping up with them. But I can imagine a life unplugged from that. And, kind of like you have managed to not need that. Like it's not part of what you do. And that's pretty incredible.
It's fortunate. It's nothing I just sort of, as things were in that world were kind of evolving and going in that direction. Like I'm also somebody who never had a business card, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not putting myself in a place that's like, it's just things that felt genuine to myself. And also just kind of, I kind of looked over the shoulder of the development of social media as it was from the early days to especially now.
Sure.
And I feel like I get my share of being informed on those things enough from hearing from almost everybody. I mean, everybody I know, from my kids to my mom so I hear enough of the traffic to be up to date, but I don't, beyond that, it's like, I feel like that's enough for me.
Sure.
To be informed and then most of the time it's like either stuff is funny or it's controversial or, and that's, I couldn't imagine being plugged into that as, I feel like I have a hard enough time managing my time without having that addition of that too. So it's just sort of what feels right for me. And it feels good for me. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to still remain in contact with people, or whoever needs to get in contact with me can do so fairly easily.
Yeah.
With the network of, our community and people, they need to get in touch with you.
They'll find a way, right?
Find a way. And
yes.
I'm good with that,
Yeah.
There's so much dissonance and that's going on out there. I was like, I just, for my own self-preservation,
yes,
this is what works.
I can
for the time being. So there was a few friends who were like, you should just get like a fake Instagram account. I was like, well, why? Because then I know if I did, then it was like that. Now that's there, and then I would be engaging in that. It's like, and I think people are doing some amazing things on there and getting they're sharing their music. There's so many benefits. I understand it. I'm just like,
sure.
I don't feel I need it in my life at this point.
Yeah. Well, if the artists that you're playing with are out there sharing the music, it's out there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's wonderful. And I think, nowadays it's a really kind of almost like an alternate reality where a lot of people gauge their level of success on on the numbers of social media, and maybe not things that they maybe would have used to measure in the past. And so I think it's tough.
It is tough. And that stuff doesn't interest me at all. So it's all keeping, perspective. It's like, and not being able to look, it's like, man, those things don't motivate me. I know where I stand, and I know what, your strengths and your shortcomings, and just being very, very honest about that. And I only have something to prove to myself. That's about it. And
I like that.
I try to apply myself to a certain standard. But that's it.
I like that. That's great. It's good, and it's you're very authentic and you are who you are. And, I like that. I do find the thing about social media that's disturbing in a lot of ways is the way that you can manipulate how people see you or who you are. And I'll say that with air quotes.
Yeah.
Because it is, you can show a certain side of yourself and you can filter yourself to where you don't even look like yourself anymore. And that part of it is a little bit scary to me, because it is like an alternate reality. So I think there is a way to use it authentically. But then, to be able to be detached from that it's pretty fantastic in this day and age.
It is, because I could see myself getting on there and it would just be another thing that I'm like, I have issues at times with like series, on the streaming network. Sure. And then if there's something I'm into, especially given the time right now, but I'll put off stuff that I should have got to, but I can't stop, it's like, if something I find I'm fascinated with it, I'm all in. That's also knowing myself too. It's like
that's smart.
And
that's really, really smart. I just had this funny image of you getting on social media and like learning the TikTok dances, JJ, and like.
Oh, well, that's another thing. I bet you that's another thing with, we have a media person that travels with us, and it's like family. And so who knows? Because it's like stuff gets silly out here, and I'm kind of a silly person. I'm a sucker for, LCD humor, and just being goofy. So some of those things are documented sometimes, and it's like
you have to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to. That's also part of who I am.
For sure.
And I like silly stuff.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, this industry it's fun. Like, and it is a lot of work, like we mentioned earlier, and being on the road is not easy, but the fact that the fact that you get to make music and make people happy and play with other musicians and bring your creativity out in such a way that it makes other people happy and affects them in a positive way. It's like, what's better than that, right?
Not much. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Too.
Well, before we go, I just want to ask if you have any advice for musicians who are coming up now. And I know it's a little bit of a different world nowadays with the way things are, but if you have any advice or insight into what they should be thinking about or focusing on.
I see. Well, always being genuine, it's being your true self. Many things like, many others have said before, because I think these things are worth saying and repeating, putting in the time, and also kind of how do you handle yourself with other people, and kind of response to you talking about like how people present themselves on a social media, and because first impressions particularly are very important, and I've seen how those things make the difference in people's lives or careers, and how you carry yourself and how you talk to people and treat people, and being professional or being prepared and being somebody that's likable. Not that you have to go out to not be who you are, but just also being able to read people and read a room, and knowing when to interject or just be quiet. All of those things are important, and it's obvious. It's like working on your craft, but just sort of, social behavior, because it's also another thing I've kind of seen in society now. This kind of trips me out. People that are adults, and then it's like actually you know, the amount of time that they've been around, you would think people would know how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I mean that in the way of like treating people respectfully.
Sure.
And just being mindful, because sometimes, you know, I think people will just reading the room and making sure you're engaged and treating people respectfully. But obviously you put in your time and working on and being honest about where you are in your development and be you, you know, because I think I also see a lot of people trying to say we're impressionable, especially by talented musicians, and, you know, but you finding your own way to do things and finding your own voice, you know, you can only have so many, you know, there's only one of each of us.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you find your voice. You know, staying inspired, and those things are inspiring, but finding a way to find yourself through those things that inspire you to have your own voice. But
I love that.
But just being respectful to people.
Yes, absolutely.
We need more compassion.
We do need more compassion, especially nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we need. And I like that. Be you, find your own voice. I love that. That's perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Well, I cannot wait to hear the new music that you mentioned and to see you again, hopefully sooner than later.
Yes, me too. I'll keep you posted, and and let's just stay in contact. Obviously, if I'm close to you, I'll be reaching out.
For sure.
I think we're holding off on certain markets until I think we are a little bit more, have a definitive idea when this is going to be wrapped up. But,
for sure. I understand that.
Yeah.
But we will, we'll see each other again. And in the meantime, we're going to go and contact our teachers. I think.
Yes, that's right.
That's what we're going to do.
Yes.
But thank you so much, JJ. It's been wonderful catching up with you, and
Absolutely.
so happy that things are going really well for you. And again, can't wait to see the new music. I'll put some links in the description so everyone can check out your tour dates.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So great to see you and chat, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All righty.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.